Hello, everyone. I'm excited to get into some hot takes, but first, let me introduce our guest. Blunder has been in the competitive Pokemon community for over a decade and has been a top player for the majority of that time. He's got several big tournament wins and lots of high tournament placements. He's the CEO of the agency, and of course, he has a very popular YouTube channel where he uploads live battling content several times a week. Blunder, thank you so much for joining.
Of course, thank you for having me. I feel like this is going to be a lot of fun. Let's get into it.
All right, so the first take I have is from Leon Zill, who says, Terapagos is worthy of a complex ban to allow it in OU. Its Terraform is a special case in the game mechanics which warrants a special ruling, and it would be a very healthy presence in OU. So honestly, I love this take. I completely agree. I think Terapagos is a Pokemon that we really do need. My initial memories of it in OU are pretty terrible, but that's because it had that massive turtle, insane stat thing allowed. So like all
Yeah,
I
the double
saw,
HP.
yeah. So this thing had, oh my god, I'm looking at it right now. So it has 160 HP on this thing and 130 special attack. So when we saw this Pokemon in OU, it was running Calm Mind, it was running Rock Polish. I think it maybe even did some BS with stored power. It does get stored power. I wasn't just imagining that. So it would just do these monstrous things. Like it would run Resto Chesto. Some of them would just be leftovers. Sometimes it would have Flamethrower, Ice Beam.
I do remember
Terra
Resto
move.
Chesto being something impossible to deal with because it's just so bulky as a Pokemon.
Yeah, it was absolutely insane. And then having that massive attack that had no resisted hits, like it was just this absolutely horrible sweeper to deal with. So right off the bat, when it got banned, I was like, oh, that's fantastic. This is great. It's gone. Whatever. Then I played it in Nat decks where Tera's banned, and so it's just the medium turtle. And I'm like, wow, this is really good, consistent removal, and it helps with sweepers. And I'm like, wow, geez, I wonder. You know what? Now I'm thinking about it. Problems in Gen 9 OU, removal, and sweepers. So I'm like, this seems like exactly what we need.
Yeah, I'm right there with you in terms of Gen 9 is obviously really geared towards offense and those types of builds. So anything that can do well in a support role, I'll always support. I also think that as far as complex bans go, that this is the least hard to really explain complex ban. Like you can treat it as if it's a different form or a mega evolution. I do think you could treat this specifically as like a different Pokemon or form, and that it would be completely fine to bring back Terapagos. You were talking about national decks where, it is a healthy presence and it's really solid there, right? In OU where we play right now, we only have a number of consistent removers. I would say the most consistent is Great Tusk. And something like this would be even better since defensively it has the ability, which is just the best thing you can ever do for something that runs Rapid Spin. And the coverage is good enough to threaten Ghost types, other Pokemon. I wanted to say real quick in Ubers, where, of course you can still Tera since it's just Gen 9 Ubers. People still use Terapagos a lot. One of my teammates just brought it in the a World Cup of Pokemon, and he just had Rapid Spin, Roar, Toxic, but it did its job really well. And so many people use it. It's just, even in Ubers, right? That ability plus Rapid Spin, and then the support options of both Roar and Toxic. Toxic being the very rare one. It just does a lot. And yeah, I think it would just be nice. Hazards is one of the most controversial points in Gen 9. People have a lot of issues with, spike stack plus gold and that kind of thing. And so something like this that would give what I would consider to probably be the most consistent answer, if it was there, would be amazing for this metagame. So I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah, no, it'd be great to see. And then so this Pokemon also yes, it does have insane coverage, and I know someone out there is like, this thing can do anything. But when it doesn't have Tera, so it's not going to be able to turn into a fire type and get a super powered flamethrower and one shot your Gholdengo. It's just going to do like 70%. That's going to limit it a lot, and it does not have recovery. So it has every coverage move in the world and then some, but it does not have recovery outside of rest. So if we saw it in OU, I don't think it would be doing. It would sometimes do Meteor Beam stuff, but it wouldn't be that difficult to manage. And it definitely would not be anywhere near like it was before. It would be almost all the time a heavy duty boots removal.
There's always going to be the same types of Pokemon that check special attackers that are going to be able to handle this guy, right? Like First, you have to decide on your coverage. Are you going to be able to fit Ice Beam and Flamethrower, and then also run Terra Starstorm, for example? And then, regardless, even if you were to have all three of those, there's always going to be the consistent Tinglu, Alomomola, Glow King that are able to make it so that this isn't like an overpowered Pokemon or anything.
Yeah, no, it's out from a sweeping point of view. It would be not really a top threat at all, but from the consistency it would add to the tier would be huge. So yeah, I'd say let's make this happen. This sounds great.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it would be a really healthy addition, honestly. Just something to give people less of a headache when it comes down to the spike stack matchup. And again, we were talking about how this is a good panic check against offense teams. I think those are two of people's biggest issues within the generation. I think Terapagos would help with both of those. So yeah, I think honestly, I'm like enthusiastic about this idea a lot. It's just been forever since I thought about Terapagos, since it's been so long.
Yeah, this might have to be another video. This and Archaludon.
Yeah, we may have
I'm
to.
a little.
Yeah, we may. Yeah, Archaludon is another one of those guys that always makes me think about complex bands so much because it's like a what could have been. But
Yeah.
I guess that's how I feel about Terapagos. That was a good take. Who submitted that? Shouts to them.
Leon Zill.
That was smart.
Yeah, that was good.
Shouts to them. That was a good one. All right, so this kind of fits in with what we were just talking about with complex bands and what if Terapagos. So I got this comment or comments similar to these about complex bands, so I'm going to read two of them. First one comes from Dresden99, who said, Smogon can be way too simple with bans. I think some complex bans like banning Electroshot instead of Archaludon could lead to more interesting metagames with a wider array of Pokemon. Obviously, you don't want to be too complex with bans, but it can be unfortunate when a broken thing about a Pokemon is just one small thing, like a move or an ability. And then another comment that was similar, talking about complex bans, is from the one who does rants, who said, we need to see more clear guidelines developed around when to make complex bans. The fact that the main argument against using them is that it's a, quotes, slippery slope is unsatisfying and vague for those who want to see them more often. And it makes it even more confusing when people who don't want them end up seeing one implemented anyways. So I thought these were pretty interesting. One is someone saying that complex bans in general, we need to, work harder to implement them more so we have a more variety in the metagame. And another person is here saying, the one who does rants, he said that they're not even defined well enough and that we always go back to the slippery slope argument. So I'm pretty of the opinion that complex bans are a good thing and we do need to implement them, despite the fact that in my decade of playing and participating in suspect tests, I think my first suspect test at this point now was like Black and White 2, Tornadus T. So that was like more than 11 years ago at this point. So I've been doing suspect tests for a while, and since then they've always had the same rigid belief that we cannot do any suspect tests. I think this is the generation. I mean, not suspect tests. Sorry, complex bans. But I think this is the generation where we kind of hit a breaking point in regards to that. As Generation 9 OU has something like 20 bans. I think it might be more.
Yeah,
and we've never never hit
20.
that type. Right, we've never even gotten close to that type of number. So obviously, this is a very unique gen in terms of the tiering that it requires and the rule set it requires. So I think sticking with this very rigid, we can't do anything too crazy, we can't do a complex ban of Archaludon, Electroshot, and that kind of thing is honestly purposefully obtuse. It's not like this is a cash official Nintendo format or anything like that where this rule cannot be changed. The reasoning to begin with, in my opinion, is not that great. It's always the same thing where they say it's a slippery slope, and then you get into the argument presented is always similarly something like, what if then people start saying you need to ban Dragon Dance on something, and it gets arbitrary like that. It would never get to that point because that is, in my opinion, arguing facetiously. It would be on clear Pokemon like Electroshot, Archaludon, a move that only exists on that Pokemon, and then you can extrapolate that to Rage Fist, Annihilate, and that kind of thing. So while it's not like every Pokemon you can do it, it's not like you can just say, ban Ivy, Cudgel, and Ogerpon and that kind of thing. I do believe there are some cases where it's not a hard decision to just eliminate the move. Like, for example, the Houndstone debacle, how we didn't have Houndstone for months just for it to come back after. All of that stuff is pretty easy to implement, and it's not going to hurt anything. And I don't believe it does any insults to like the consistency of ruling or tiering. So I think for all the previous generations, for a lot of the previous generations, I do think there could have been complex bans, but I wasn't that like adamantly like, oh, I can't believe they didn't do any complex bands in like back in Gen 7 and Gen 8. But Gen 9 is so power creeped. It has so many different things that we haven't dealt with before. And the 24 bands that have happened so far made me think that, yeah, they should have gone somewhere with complex bands. At least, so sorry for talking so much, but yeah, that's my position on this.
It's all good. This ranting is what this is all about. Yeah, I was against complex bands for a while because that argument kind of did it for me. Just like, not just that it was a slippery slope, but I was like, that kind of makes sense, right? Like you start with banning electroshock, but then it could be something like Ivy Cudgel. Well, it wouldn't be Ivy Cudgel and Ogerpon because
no, but I know exactly what you mean.
But,
though. Like
I'm like, yeah, like where do you draw that line? But
exactly.
then I guess now that I think about it, we already have a council that's kind of just, we're trusting to just be reasonable. I mean, we do that with what am I trying to, it's quick bans, right? Like we just kind of trust that the council's not going to quick ban something they shouldn't quick ban. And, when there's something obvious, they'll get rid of it. So couldn't that same judgment be used to not do something like, banning Draco Meteor on Dragapult if people thought it got too much? Like, it seems to me like maybe that would be okay. I mean, and there are some cases where, of course, like, like in Gen 5, Blaziken's a little too much. Let's like ban Flare Blitz on it. Like that's not obviously good and things that go way too far. But yeah, I think people should definitely, and tiering councils in general should be probably more open to it. In particular, there are some that are just so popular, so supported by the community, like Ironhead on Gen 4 Jirachi. Like people really like Jirachi. I mean, it's got like super cool moves, like Doom Desire sets are awesome, and like various Calm Mind things they do, and lead sets, and it's such a cool Pokemon that can do so much for a team. But then it's also got this Ironhead that just ruins everything and turns the game into an absolute mess. So it's like, yeah, if you could get rid of that, I mean, that seems like it would just be good for everyone. And at the end of the day, it's a game, right? Very few people are playing this. I mean, I guess it's kind of funny that we have two of them here, but almost nobody's making anything resembling a career out of Pokemon. They just want to play and have fun. Yes. So yeah, like if it's going to be more fun, like who cares about the integrity of, these venerable old methods of tiering?
Yeah, I feel like I'm right there with you, honestly. And when I was in like my most competing in tournaments phase, I remember I was always really strict when it came to tiering, and I was always like, yep, whatever passes, it's fine, it all makes sense. But then over time, I just sort of started thinking, sometime around Gen 8, I was like, what do I even want when I play the game, like from a fun perspective of like, and then eventually like, and enjoy, like the game being enjoyable started meaning a lot to me. Of course, within reason. I don't want like Dynamax back or something like that, but I don't want to get so caught up in like the rigidness of competitive that we strip down the game of all its elements, just in the name of some sort of consistency,
I mean, yeah, I think I kind of get where you're coming from. Generally, I'm very ban happy, and I think that's great on it. Like in Generation 8, for example, everything that was even remotely broken got banned. And like it got to the point that at the end of the gen, they tried to suspect test Melmetal for some reason. I was so confused. I'm like, we're like, that's you've done enough tiering when you're suspect testing Melmetal, because it was just not even close to being like a big problem, and everyone was pretty confused as to why it was happening. So, and that is a super competitive metagame, but it's not only really competitive and stable and balanced, it's the absolute best for team building that I've ever been in. Like you can use so many creative Pokemon and make them work at a top level. And so, yeah, I mean, like, I feel like generally having a really balanced tier where a lot of broken stuff got banned or restricted does make it really fun. But there are some cases in the thing where you talk about like complex bans, like would the tier be more fun if we had our Chaladon without Electroshock? Yeah. Probably. But generally, I like my bans.
I'd wager. Yeah, I mean, I'd wager that every generation has like these types of Pokemon that are quote unquote probably like broken, but like are allowed. Like Gen 7, for example, has a myriad of different stuff. Magearna, for example. For me in Gen 8, I think Future Sight and Tapu Lele is pretty broken, like those two elements. So, but I feel like these types of elements, like you can't just really remove them from the game because they do put a balance, and it's hard to strike that balance. And I think Gen 9 is the hardest one to strike the balance in. So I feel like if they did do more definition around the complex banning and introduce that, then it would only help them as to have a more balanced metagame fully.
Yeah, I say that's fair. Yeah, and I think in a lot of cases I'd be open to seeing more of it. I'm a recent convert to the complex ban cause, not to a ridiculous degree, but I think it's something worth looking into more. Well, so let's go to another kind of controversial topic, pivoting. Implying says the fact that a ton of Pokemon get U-turn is not a huge problem. And I honestly agree with this. I feel like pivoting is obviously it's a lot better in singles than in VGC, which I think is why a lot of people think it's broken. It allows like clicking U-turn is the right play so often. But I don't really see that as a problem. It's a weak bug type move. It's got plenty of counterplay. It's contact, which is every generation contact moves. I feel like just get worse and worse. Like you see
For sure.
in OU,
It all started with the birds and static and flame body in Gen 8. It all started there. Now it's like you have to think twice about any physical move you throw out nowadays.
No, it's gotten pretty intense. And if you look, I mean, in the OU tier, like I'm just going to scroll down and look at some of the physical attackers here. Okay, fair enough. Sarah Ledge is still hitting you. Cinderace, that thing, I mean, it's got Pyro Ball, right? Dragapult, when it does run physical sets, it's got darts. D-Knight actually does touch you. Great Tusk actually does touch you. Kingambit does as well. Ogerpon, right? That's great because Ivy Cudgel. Aatrot's got the Aqua Cutter. Weavile mostly touches you, but kind of has the Icicle Crash. So it's like a lot of the Pokemon in OU are either running special sets, and the physical attackers, a lot of the ones that have like the best, most spammable moves, particularly Ogerpon, they're not running contact. Like contact is not very good. And you think of the Pokemon that do like really like just kind of hitting you, contact is such a big thing in their way, like Scizor, Kingambit, Great Tusk. Like contact abilities are kind of the bane of their existence. So U-turn, although a bunch of things get it, and it is like such a good middle ground play a lot of the time, I've never found it to be an overpowered move. And I think adding consistency is good. The other thing is all pivoting moves enable frail offensive Pokemon. I think the more pivoting moves you have, the more viability kind of cool Pokemon get. Stuff like Weavile or like Meowscarada that don't have an easy time switching in. So I feel like all pivoting in general, U-turn being one, but all pivoting is just good for diversity.
Yeah, what you said about those types of like stronger, frailer mons getting an in because of that is so true. Like take a Hoopa, for example, that we see in Gen 9 all the time. You'll never see that on a team that doesn't have like Chili Reception, Slowking, and then another U-turn Pokemon or something like that, because you're not going to be able to bring it in without that type of tool. So I totally agree with you on that. It does drive up diversity. But yeah, I'm in agreement with you that we have so many things that punish this move. I think the only time that U-turn may have been like quote unquote unfair or annoying was during Generation 5 and 6, where we didn't even have boots or consistent removal options as we do now. So I think back then it could be annoying because it's like, oh, you're trapped in the vortex and taking this stealth rock chip every time. But when you get to Gen 8 and 9, it's like it doesn't matter if you're spamming Volt Turn, if hazards aren't up, Regenerator's present. Gen 8 we had stuff like Tornadus T, right, that is able to handle almost any U-turn Pokemon. And then Gen 9 we have Gliscor, which completely counters that type of thing. Corviknight, Skarmory, so many helmet type users. So yeah, I think in Generation 4, 5, it could, I mean, sorry, not 4, 5. It isn't 4, but I can't speak for 4. But in 5, 6, I totally do understand why people can get annoyed by it. But I do recall one thing in particular. In Gen 7, I was playing in a tournament, and I had a 3-attack Landorus with Stealth Rock 3-attack, and the last move was U-turn. And I ended up changing the move to Stone Edge, because I remember telling myself, I mean, I don't really need if I need to switch out, I can just, I have the power to predict that if I really need to. But if I have an extra attacking move, this Stone Edge, it's going to help me versus Tornadus in that type of matchup. And that actually ended up happening in the game itself. And I remember thinking to myself, yeah, as nice as it is to have pivot moves, it's not like you need them every time. You still, have the power to just switch. So there's a trade-off too when it's not just like, oh, slap U-turn on every single Pokemon and it's an auto win,
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think that actually might kind of shed some light on why people don't like U-turn. I think it might be kind of a skill issue thing in a lot of cases. Because like, when I have to start up a new account for whatever reason, I'm in low ladder and I click like a U-turn with a banded scissor, people just make the strangest switch-ins. Like they'll be like, let me bring in my Dondozo. And I click U-turn and do like 25%. I'm like, well, that's just like lost health. Why are you doing that?
And then they can get so frustrated. I know I know exactly what you're talking about because sorry to cut you off real quick, but one of my favorite things to run, like on a new account when I'm laddering up, like 1000s to 1500s, is like Baraskew to Rain, because you really just click flip turn over and over.
Oh, yeah.
And it's very easy to farm a lot of teams, even on high ladder, I would say too. It's definitely legit. I've used it so many times, but I know exactly what you mean. Like, it's really frustrating, and I've been on the receiving end of that too, where it's like this thing keeps clicking flip turn and there's just nothing I can do about it.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the thing that like you did a good point of illustrating, I guess, what I'm trying to get to, which is that it's super easy to click, but not that easy to counter. But like if you're a good player, if you know what you're doing, it's a lot easier to counter. Like you can say, okay, I know this flip turn's going to hit me really hard, but I can, go into a Pokemon that I know if I go into this and then get flip turned on, they'll be forced into this Pokemon, which is really easy for me to switch into. But it's like you kind of have to think ahead to deal with pivoting 100%.
Moves. You have to take a trade at some point, and you have to just tell yourself that, okay, I'm going to have to take a trade at some point. If you keep trying to think like I'm just going to keep covering the Volt Turn, then you're going to lose all your Pokemon.
Yeah,
right?
No, you get stuck in a vortex of just losing health.
Exactly,
and that's what those low level players do all the time. Instead, like when you realize you're about to be in a vortex, you want to break it immediately. No, even though it'll hurt you more short term, you got to break it immediately.
Yeah, that short term pain, like losing a Pokemon to get up Stealth Rock, at least now you stopped the future Volt turning from happening. Right? That's happened to me so many times where it's like 3 or 4 turns of it, and then I'm like, oh my God, I have to stop this now before I lose every Pokemon.
Yep. Yeah. No, so that's I think in some ways it's a skill issue. So I agree with implying here. I like U-turn.
Yeah. Same. Good move when used in moderation, as all things are. Okay, this is from Priyansh Chess 4836, and they said there should be items clause in OU National Dex OU and National Dex OU, allowing for more actual team building instead of boot spam, leftover spam, and hyper offense, life orb spam, etc. So I included this because I have been asked this on my stream a couple of different times over the years, mostly probably because VGC, of course, has items clause. And I don't know, I really wanted to bring this up and discuss it because it's just, items clause is hard for me to kind of picture what it would look like. I do think that it would drive up diversity, especially because we do see a lot of balanced teams rock boot spam. We see offense teams with 3 or 4 booster Pokemon. But I'm not sure if it would honestly be a healthy thing. Like, I think, for example, hazards might be even more overpowered than we've ever felt if you're limited to 1 boost per team. Like, I think balanced teams, for example, might get completely cut from, you can't just give one guy leftovers, one guy boots. Gliscor is now mandatory because no other Pokemon is going to use Toxic Orb, so you kind of cheat a slot that way. But then what are you going to do? You're going to give Pokemon Citrus Berry and Shell Bell and stuff like that? It's
oh my God. Shell Bell is the biggest noob trap item ever. It's like
on my Swords Dance Leech Life low kicks.
But here's the crazy thing. There's a move, Big Root, that boosts up the power of draining. So it's like everyone's like, no, but what if you pair the Shell Bell with a drain? It's like, it's not going to work. Just run a Big Root, man.
You wouldn't believe me, but I've like literally tried on the ladder Big Root before when I was like making a tournament team back in the day, because I was like, there has to be a way to make this work, but the healing move is so weak.
Yeah, no, I think
was like, there's got to be a way.
I'm pretty sure, like, mathematically, it is always better to run Big Root than Shell Bell. Like, there's no draining move that does so little that it's ever. So yeah, Shell Bell is such a shame. But that's, I guess, to get back kind of on topic, because
but I appreciate you bringing that up.
One other small Shell Bell thing that's really funny that I'm pretty sure this works. If you run Mind Blown on like a Blacephalon, I think the Shell Bell will get you back. Like, you could just run leftovers, but it's still pretty funny. I wonder if that would, because it's such a high damage. Anyway, though, I'm theory crafting about Shell Bell right here. Let's get back to it. So as far as the item clause, I hate that idea. So building is what I do. Yeah. Like, that's my absolute favorite part of the game. In fact, like even the only way I got good at battling was just testing teams. I didn't actually really care how good I was at battling. I just really wanted to build good teams.
Oh, for sure.
So I do now, obviously. People geez, I'm not going to check out this guy's battling guides anymore. No, I care now. But no, like I really don't see that this would increase diversity. I mean, it would increase item diversity a little bit, at least like on some spreadsheet somewhere, but I don't think this would help with team diversity at all. Like boot spam is an archetype. When you make this item clause, you get rid of that archetype. Hyper offense that runs a lot of booster energy, that is an archetype. You get rid of that, you're losing this archetype. So I think this is just going to make a lot of teams not work. And I don't see that as really helping anything. Like, as you said, it's going to give a huge boost to some Pokemon like Gliscor. And I think we'd see kind of certain Pokemon emerge that, because they use an uncommon item well, would be a lot more popular. And yeah, like sure, it would lead to some cool stuff, like maybe Big Root Ceruledge, for example, like having that draining move. You could be like, oh, that's kind of cool. People didn't run that before. But now, as you said, like balance is dead, hazards are broken. It's a very different environment than VGC. There are different challenges to face in singles, and I don't think an item clause would translate well. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, because as you said, like there's so much that would change with an item clause that it's kind of impossible to say whether it would be good or not. But I don't think it would be.
I'm with you. I think it's just short-sighted. Like at face value, it's like, different items means different diversity. People won't stack booster Pokemon, or they won't stack fat Pokemon. But you are going to kill diversity more than anything that way. And we will end up with teams that don't look good and have a weird conglomeration just because you can't have. So Pokemon that are supposed to work together now won't. And it'll just become like a weird mashed up sort of metagame.
Yeah, I mean, and so we suspect. Maybe it would be the best thing since Landorus Therian, but probably not. I feel like it'd probably be bad.
No, I'm with you for sure.
All right, let's see. So speaking of things that are most people think are bad, here we go with Dragon Lord, who says Regenerator is a stupid, brainless ability. The healing should be reduced to 25%, if not even less, so getting up hazards can actually put some real pressure on these mons. I am the biggest Regenerator fan you'll ever find. I think this ability is fantastic. I think it's great in singles, and I think it's super healthy. I really don't see it as being kind of toxic in any way, because I think the main criticism I see, now I'll admit, Gen 7 Toxapex went a little over the line, but that wasn't really Regenerator's fault. You know, kind of like, Gen 7 Naganadel. That was also over the line, but no one was like hating on Draco Meteor. They gave Toxapex, the stats were good, the coverage was good, they gave Haze, Toxic, whatever. But Regen in general, I think, is ability that at its core enables balanced teams. And it's not the huge W for fat stall teams that people think it is. I would say most of the prominent regen Pokemon in OU, like if we just look right now at, like regen in the tier, I look, and the first three I see, Alomomola, Glowking, Hydrapple. I'd say all three of those Pokemon are way worse for stall than they are a tool. And if those three were banned tomorrow, stall would be way better and balance would be way worse.
I gotta disagree with that on Alomomola. I find that Alomomola is one of the best stall Pokemon, if not like absolutely needed on stall.
Oh, it's really good
you
on
disagree?
stall. I agree. It's a really good tool for stall, and it's a really good stall Pokemon. But I think it's better at countering stall than it is good for stall. Like if I think an Alo ban would be.
No, I want you. Stall definitely has a like mandated Pokemon, right? And Alomomola is not going to fit like on the absolutely needed. But I do think that stall in general, especially right now, the most used stall is a Toxapex team with Don Dozo and Weezing G, I believe. But I do think that stall as a whole is going to need one type of regenerator. Like that's been pretty consistent throughout the generation.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a tool for stall. Like regen, without a doubt, it's good for stall. But I think it overall helps. I think regen as a whole hurts stall more than it helps stall. Not necessarily regen in general, I guess you could say. Like, for instance, if Toxapex was banned, stall gets worse because that's not a
Oh
tool
yeah.
for balance at all. It's just Toxapex, especially now that it's lost, knock off and scald, is basically a pure, it's so passive, it's pretty much a pure stall mon. Used to be on balance in Gen 7, it would be on kind of like bulky offense balance teams, not anymore. But as a whole, I feel like most Regenerator Pokemon are really good tools for balance and really, really helpful in the stall matchup. But yeah, like maybe if you deleted regen completely from the game, maybe that would hurt stall more in the current climate. Just because, as you say, all stalls typically run at least one Regenerator Pokemon, and it's really good for them. But as you hurt stall a little, I think you'd hurt balance a lot more. I feel like there's so many pivots, like we were talking about earlier with Hoopa.
It's an integral piece of balance. You can't like G King is one of my most spammed Pokemon in tournament for good reason. It fits on legitimately every single style of team, and it does one thing and it does it absolutely phenomenally. Actually, it does two things because Assault Vest is just as good as Boots. But no, I'm with you absolutely on that. That you basically need these for balanced teams to thrive. And I'll always have a special place in my heart for Slowking G since it basically beats Stall single-handedly.
Oh yeah, no, I love
Slowking.
It's amazing, especially with like back in Gen 8 with or
if I
it didn't have
about
pivoting.
one Pokemon.
Sorry, go for it.
Oh yeah, Gen 8 was all AV and Trick Nasty Plot. I remember bringing both of those to tournament many times. But I was gonna say if I have to play like an important tournament match and I'm thinking like, oh, what is like a Pokemon I'm gonna bring just for that like safety check? It's always gonna be like either Slowking G, Dragonite, Tinglu, something like one of those types of Pokemon. It's just they will always cover something. You will almost never run into a matchup where that Pokemon is useless. It can be a tough matchup, but it's almost near impossible unless you play literally Mono Dark. That something like Slowking is bad. The only one I don't really like playing against, and I don't. Alomomola I really dislike. I find that to be like one of the most uninteractive Pokemon since it came out. Since it's really all it does is Wish and Flip Turn. In old generation it was Scaldfish, but it wasn't seen much besides occasional Gen 6 OU back when I used to play. Now we have the Assault Vest set, which I mean I think it has like its honest role as a pivot, but I don't really enjoy playing against that specifically. I just think it's way too uninteractive, which again that's just my own like what I enjoy playing against and don't enjoy playing against. Regenerator going down to 25%, I wouldn't be totally against. I think it's a fine fix. Like I'm not for it or against it in any one way. I do want to say though that the thing I actually dislike the most when it comes to like bulkier and fatter abilities is Unaware. That we don't even see Unaware much anymore. It used to be absolutely super broken back in the day. Gen 7, Gen 6 fatter teams in my opinion, but nowadays Unaware is only on a couple of Pokemon that are pretty exploitable. But I just want to say Unaware was what I always found to be super like unfair and like more than Regenerator or anything like that. Because that's actually halting progress. You can beat Regenerator.
I mean, that seems kind of wild because like setup is really good. Unaware is ability that just ignores setup. I've never heard of someone hating it as an ability.
I always found that setup is you don't get that turn for free. So setup is 99% of Pokemon's way of forcing progress in a battle. And so I never liked that Unaware just stops what, in my opinion, is a core mechanic of the game. You set up your Pokemon to go through like an opponent's team, whether it be offense, balance, whatever. It's to progress the game. That's the point of setup. So again, this is just my personal view on the game, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I've always been really against Unaware for that reason. I just think it's too uninteractive.
Yeah, I definitely get what you mean in theory, as far as like, oh, you know, it's like setup is because it is a super integral part of the game, has been since the first generation. But at the same time, like as setup sweepers became more and more powerful, I mean, like we've got setup sweepers that the Gen 1 developers would, they'd be curled up in a ball crying looking at. And
well, I wouldn't say it for Gen 9 at least, that Unaware is anything too crazy. Gen 9 definitely isn't offensively geared. I'm pretty in favor of anything like bulky winning in Gen 9 because offense is so easy to get away with.
Yeah. Yeah, but I can definitely see why Unaware is frustrating. I've never really had an issue with it as an ability, but that's an interesting perspective.
Okay, so this is from Sojon501, who said, despite everyone always complaining about power creep, I think having some power creep makes new gens more novel and fun. I'd rather a new gen have a bunch of new powerful Pokemon being new OU staples than having new Pokemon be underwhelming and OU just being a reskin of the previous gen. Pokemon like Tyranitar and Latios already had several years on the spotlight. Let them be power crept in order for new Pokemon to shine. All right, so I picked this comment because I used to kind of go back and forth with these things. I've said it a lot in my videos and streams and whatnot that, in my opinion, the Gen 9 power creep is the craziest thing we've ever dealt with. And I'm sure a lot of people have the same opinion. I honestly think it's kind of overwhelming how much the metagame changes, how many things are frustrating to deal with. I think Gen 9 is the most like taxing metagame or the most taxing generation of OU we've ever had.
Oh, yeah.
Like I feel like you need to consistently practice. To stay strong in this. I can't say that for the past few generations. I remember taking long breaks, coming back to tournament and being fine. I don't think that that's possible in Generation 9, given how changing it is and how just new stuff is always coming out. But this being said, I do agree with this comment, because I used to think, oh, like, it's just too much power. We shouldn't have all these things, like all this booster, blah, blah, blah. But I think back to Generation 6 OU, which is when I first started really competing at a high level. And there was only like 5 or 7 Pokemon from that generation that even made it into OU. Greninja, which got banned by the time Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire came out. And then we had like Talonflame. And the most used Pokemon back then were Landorus, Rotom, Latios still. Of course, we had Megas, which were different Pokemon, but again, those are still previous generation Pokemon. So I loved playing the generation, but I remember thinking like, dang, like I really wish more Pokemon were good. Like I would love to use Crocodile or something in a competitive setting in this generation, but I'm just here using all the older Pokemon. So while the creep is pretty strong, like I said, we've never had Booster Energy, Valiant, and Roaring Moon and all of them in the same metagame as something as ridiculous as Tinglu. But I do like that I go into a high level battle and I see that 10 of the 12 Pokemon are from this generation. It gives Gen 9 its own like flair. And even now, the metagame is really cyclical. Like I've been playing, we're seeing Rillaboom and stuff like that come back. Again, that's not a Gen 9 Pokemon, but we keep seeing like metagame cycles within this generation, and we keep getting like there's new things from Gen 9 that are always gonna keep coming around. So I'm personally support this.
Yeah, I've actually never thought about that before as like power creep being kind of healthy in a way that it gives you new options. Now, one thing I do want to say, Crocodile is Gen 5. So
Yes.
I know there are like a dozen people in the comments typing that up right now. So I just wanted to get out in front of that.
Did I say 6? Oh, I meant 5.
Yeah. No, I know you know that. A Pokemon master would never make such an error. But but yeah. But like I know what you mean about Gen 6. Yeah, you did have Megas, but yeah, it was pretty much the same. And I think like Gen 4 looked a lot like Gen 3 and stuff. So yeah, I'm honestly I like the idea that they make new Pokemon good. And the other thing though is the cutting the national deck. So we have a limited pool of competitive, I think was in retrospect, although I wasn't happy at the time, is really, really great because it allows you to give new Pokemon a spotlight without making the power creep too much. If you cut the decks down, get out some really good Pokemon from previous gens, you can make them just a little bit stronger and kind of keep that cycle going for a very long time before power creep becomes ridiculous and, Arceus becomes Little Cup. So one thing I will say though, as you said, Gen 9 being the most taxing metagame, I think that's a perfect way to put it. It is so difficult to play this tier.
It's like so demanding.
You really need to know, you need to know the sets, you need to know the common trends. Like if you don't know like what's in and what the latest techs are, you will just get smoked by it in a tournament because there's just so many insane sweepers and breakers with Tera. You're not going to know what's up. So yeah, and I think in general, power creep in Gen 9 was taken way too far. Like part of the reason that it's so great you can cut the decks is that you don't need to make it every new Pokemon better than everything that's ever come before. And yeah, some of the things they added this game, it was like, this was not necessary. You didn't need to do it.
Like completely unexplainable. Some of the stuff that was added in this game.
Like you look at Flutter Mane, and you're like, what what was the thought process there? Why did we do that?
Yeah, right. And it's I wanted to say like I've played in tournament like since Generation 5, and I can confidently say that nothing was as hard as Gen 9 OU is. I love this generation, but the amount of effort that needs to go in to be at like the highest level is honestly ridiculous compared to the other generations. Just so much is always changing.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. The mental load is truly next level. So yeah,
Yeah.
although the Pokemon that were added this game, like Baxcalibur, oh my god, just like the list goes on and on of things.
Oh,
You're like
the
what were you
headache, something
thinking?
like Organical, like so many unique Pokemon that everything
Yeah,
about them is just like, holy cow, how do we deal with this?
yeah, they went overboard, but in theory, I don't mind power creep. So after and I think this is a great point. So like in Generation 8, when like oh Dragapult's really good, it's like okay great, I'm glad Dragapult's really good. Now in Gen 9, sure they took it way too far. They made way too many powerful Pokemon, but in concept, yeah, this seems good. I'm happy to see new Pokemon get the spotlight.
Yeah. Yeah, overall same for me.
All right, so I've got another controversial one here. This is one from Parrot Royale who says when Toxic, Scald, and Knockoff were everywhere, the metagame was so much better off. And so I guess for those that don't know, because I know a lot of people got in to Pokemon on Generation 9, for which you have my condolences, but so in previous generations, Toxic was like every Pokemon had Toxic, everything. And a ton of Pokemon, almost every water type had Scald. And Knockoff, well, it's pretty much the same now. Knockoff, they gave Knockoff back, so we can, I guess, kind of ignore that part of the take. But I do think it was good that they gave Knockoff back. But yeah, Toxic and Scald were, every water type had Scald, and literally almost every single Pokemon had Toxic. And a lot of people didn't like that, which I get. I actually liked it. I liked that everything had Toxic. I think it gave a lot of Pokemon a way to make progress. Like, for example, when you look at things like Zapdos or even something like Alomomola or Ting-Lu in Generation 9, imagine if everything could just poison them, like how much easier to deal with those Pokemon would be. I feel like it gave so many things that maybe are lacking in coverage or just don't really need to be clicking that many moves, a really cool option. And I honestly thought, yeah, it was good. I didn't like Scald. Scald, I'll say, yeah, the 30% burn was a little much. I think cutting Scald distribution massively is kind of a W. I was a fan of that, but Toxic being everywhere was pretty great in my opinion. What do you think about that?
Man, I guess I just wish more Pokemon learned Toxic. Toxic is the big one for me. I'm with you on that because it did limit a lot of things, and it was a nice move that you could really just put on anything. Like I miss my Landorus T having Toxic. I miss that my Landorus T's best support moves are all gone. Now in Gen 9, you have one support move, which is Taunt. I mean, of course, Rocks, but you know what I mean? Like, you used to be able to check other defensive Pokemon with Knockoff and Toxic, two awful things that no defensive Pokemon wants to deal with. And that being stripped has really just changed a lot of Pokemon's roles overall. Scald, I'm with you. I never found Scald to be fun at all. The fact Burn basically is a one-hit KO on any physical attacker.
Yeah.
Back in the day, it was even worse when it was 12.5% per turn. It was like legitimately unplayable. The 6.25% nerf was amazing. That was probably one of Pokemon's most genius decisions for actually balancing the game.
Yeah,
Knockoff.
I started.
I didn't mind knockoffs. Sorry, what was that?
I was gonna say I started like at the end of Generation 6, so I only had to experience the super powerful burn for a little bit. But yeah, whenever I like see an old gen battle and I'll see like a Mega Venusaur get burned by a Scald,
by Keldeo.
and then just take
it'll lose. Yeah.
I'm like, oh my god, this is tragic stuff. But anyway, yeah, continue your rant.
I could go on a rant about that specific thing forever because Gen 6 is when I was really playing every tournament, and I would have Keldeo on every team, and if I didn't bring Keldeo, I'm having Calm Mind Slowbro because it's the same thing. Like I'm throwing out burns, and once that counter does get burned, it's only a matter of time before you lose to said Pokemon. And man, that is just such a chore to have to deal with. But yeah, I appreciate the Scald removal. Toxapex having 3 of the best support moves ever back in Gen 8 and 7 was just way too much. Not that I think it's broken, but it's not fun to have to deal with something that has a move that cripples everything on your team, and you have to have your own as to not take like permanent crippling. So I thought that was just like pretty. When I think of those three moves, I can only think of that Pokemon, since that Pokemon actually runs all three for
Yeah.
on like on real sets, you know.
Yeah, Toxapex was a bit overtuned for sure. But yeah, I'm honestly
but
shocked.
I mean, even that 8 recovers has completely changed. Which I mean, that's a side thing, but 8 recovers really did help with a lot of that type
that
of
was
stuff.
great. Like that made
that was an
PP
amazing
stalling
switch.
an
Yeah.
actual option. Like now, like you can actually hit a Blissey
Exactly.
with enough special attacks that it can't recover anymore, which is so big.
You can
Like, that's great.
you can actually outplay it. Like back in the day, you would actually get punished because it's like, oh, they have like 4 Pokemon with 16 recovery moves each, and it's like, how are you expected to break that? You know, if your team isn't geared towards that, like you can't even outplay it. There's just too many. You don't have enough moves for it. So I'm totally there with you. I don't know if I can say it was better. This take is honestly, it's like pretty nostalgia coded, because like, what does that mean? That Gen 6, 7, 8 were just superior to Gen 9, which I guess is a matter of opinion. But
Yeah,
I don't know.
I guess so much
I
better
do
off
miss
is
these
probably,
moves on some Pokemon.
Yeah, like the takes is so much better off. That's especially when we talk about Scald, it's definitely an exaggeration. So I agree with part of this.
Yeah.
I like Toxic, and I'm honestly absolutely shocked that you agree with me on Toxic. I was like, all right, I'll add this one in so we can get a little bit of an argument going here. And you're like, oh, I like Toxic. I'm like, what? Okay.
Oh no, Toxic is great.
I think you're the only other person that I've ever heard agree with me on that Toxic take.
I remember in some Gen 7 tournament games, I had a Mega Alakazam last move Toxic all the time because of Calm Mind Megaladios. I would send that thing out, and people would be like, "What is this?" No, put Toxic on the strongest Pokemon known to man, but it's what we're talking. Dude, it's like the most consistent move to just put a check on something immediately. I mean, it's Toxic was never overpowered. There's many counters to Toxic. There's Gliscor, there's Poison types Pokemon, Steel type Pokemon, Magic Guard is an ability. It's nothing too crazy. Knockoff I'm a little 50-50 on, because Knockoff was really annoying to have to always make account for in Generation 8. It wasn't broken or nothing, but it was like you couldn't even, in my opinion, if you went into a Gen 8 tournament game without Knockoff, you were doing yourself a disservice. It's one of the best ways to make progress in any type of game, and everything gets it. So in Gen 9, I do kind of miss that it's not as present, but there's still like a lot of Pokemon that are used that have it, right? Valiant,
I mean, they basically,
Ogre.
Knockoff has been, if not completely, like 90% restored to its former glory. When Gen 9 first came out, distribution of Knockoff was super limited, but then one of the DLCs came out, I think some move tutor on some island, and then all of a sudden everything gets Knockoff again. So it's pretty much back, which I think is good. But yeah, I mean, I guess I think people like the general Knockoff hate just comes from historical Pokemon, because in Gen 5 it was 20 base power or something terribly low.
You see it one every 100 battles back then. Yeah,
and then Gen 6 and 7, I mean, Gen 6 having Megas, which couldn't be knocked off, and then Gen 7 making Knockoff even worse with Z moves as well, which you also couldn't knock off.
You're right.
And then Gen 8, it's like, hey, we still have a strong Knockoff, but now there are no Megas and Z moves. So it just Knockoff popped off in Gen 8 and became way better. I don't really see that as an issue. I didn't think of it as unhealthy. Like, it's better. But not necessarily I never thought,
like, oh man, Knockoff is the enemy. You know, I'm with you on that. Yeah. I never it's annoying for sure, but you limit it the same way you limit like whatever, you know.
Yeah. And I'd actually say in Gen 9, it's probably not even as good as it was in 8 because of all the booster energies, right? And like air balloons and stuff. I think in general, temporary items have gotten, and Gliscor's back, of course. We got some really good knockoff observers.
Right. So
like temporary items are better than ever. And even back in the day, you can run like, red card eject button, like just burn an item early and then not worry about knockoff. So I've never found knockoff to be a problematic move. I like it. I think it's being powerful is great.
I'm with you on that. No, we're basically got the same opinion on that.
Yeah, that is unusual, but I guess it happens. Jeez. All right, what's what have you got up next?
Okay. So these are 2 comments that were actually right next to each other, funny enough, but they're basically the same thing. So the first comment was from Here Was O, who said gold is more broken than Magearna. And then the second comment right under from Greninja the G said Gholdengo should be banned from OU since it's immune to status and it ruined Defog. Not to mention Gholdengo can easily break through stall very easily with Nasty Plot plus Psyshock, making Blissey get cooked easily, and you can't roar whirlwind Gholdengo out since its annoying ability prevents it. And then they put in quotes, not a big stall fan, but Gold is just annoying. So I definitely empathize with this take. Gold is one of the most annoying Pokemon to deal with. It's super frustrating. I can't disagree at all. It doesn't matter what type of team style you're running. If you're running stall or balance, you're going to run into Nasty Plot with perfect coverage. And then if you're running offense, of course, you're going to run into Bold Nature with T-Wave, Terra Fairy, and it's going to wall everybody. And it's an annoying Pokemon. I'm not going to sit here and say Gold's very fun to play against. No, it's horrible to play against. Comparing it to Magearna, the first part is, Magearna was one of those things that you can kind of compare to Gold in the sense that it was like, it had so many amazing qualities and it kept the metagame in check. But Magearna was brought over the edge simply because of stored power. That was something that was something that just took it way over the moon. That made Magearna more broken than a lot of Pokemon even in Ubers. Like that was something completely different. I think for me, Gholdengo was a Pokemon that if this was to get quote unquote banned or suspect tested, I think that this was a decision that needed to be made in the beginning of the generation. I think that the council or whatever, there had to be a discussion on what do we want from a metagame? Is this a proper relationship with hazards? What Gholdengo introduces? Because we never had anything like that. The idea of blocking defog and spin in one Pokemon has never existed. And even past the removal aspect, good as gold is crazy. But I'm only going to talk about the fact that it blocks defog since hazard stack is, what we've come up learning is a way to play the game.
Yeah.
So I think that was something that I would have liked the decision made on in the beginning, whether that type of thing, like, this Pokemon, is it broken because of what it does? Personally, I find Gold, I really, like I said, I really do empathize with this comment because I hate fighting Gholdengo. It's such a nuisance. Even, I remember 2 days ago I was laddering and I played Grassy Seed, Terra Water, and unkillable. Just
That'll
unkillable. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, there's nothing I can do here. But I think it's just one of those Pokemon that even with how many annoying qualities it has, I think it balances out things better than ever. It's so good into different types of teams, and you are kind of limited in what's set. Like this person said that Nasty Plot Psyshock beats Stall. Well, if you're Nasty Plot Psyshock, you're not going to be doing much to offense, for example. And if you're the defensive Hex set, you're going to be amazing into offense, but you're not going to be doing so much into like a fatter team. So I don't know. I do empathize, and Gold's so annoying to play. I get it, but I'm a big fan, personally, of keeping it in the meta. I think that was a decision that had to be made back then. And if it did get banned back then, I don't know. I don't think I would have been like super up in arms. Who knows what the game would have ended up becoming, but yeah, that's how I feel.
Yeah, that's fair. Gholdengo, for me, it's all about the hazards, right? Like good as gold, it's annoying, but if Gholdengo was faster, I would see it being just too insane as a sweeper. But just because of its speed being by Gen 9 standards really quite poor, and it doesn't have Calm Mind, that's important too. If this thing had Calm Mind, and I know almost always. I don't even want to think about Calm Mind, Tera. I don't want to think about that right now. But yeah, the fact that it really can't boost its defense, or it probably has like Iron Defense or something dumb, but it effectively isn't going to be increasing its defense. There's no Quiver Dance, there's no Victory Dance. It's just going to be doing its Nasty Plot thing or being some bulky set. And yeah, it's definitely annoying. You go into King Gambit and you're like, okay, I'm going to click Sucker Punch, and then it hits you with a T-Wave, and you're like, okay, well at least it doesn't have Focus Blast, and then it hits you with Focus Blast, and you're like, what? How was I supposed to know that? Like, that's not a playing mistake. It just happened to be the wrong Gholdengo, but it doesn't sweep. Like it's so much worse. Like with a Pokemon like Kyurem, if you don't know it's DD, and then you switch into like a physical Pokemon expecting it to be DD, and then it sets up like a substitute, like you're in a really tough spot. Or if you go into a special wall and it clicks DD, you're also in a really tough spot. Gholdengo is never going to absolutely wreck your game that way, which I think is really good. And then there's also the thing that all the sets it can run makes it a real asset to building. Like it can, with Trick Scarf, it can actually shut down Dragonite, which is huge. It can actually deal with a ton of sweepers. It can pressure Zamazenta, Dragapult. Like Scarf is really good in that role. It can do that defensive Thunderwave thing. It can, and even the fact that it can block defog enables Hazard Stack. Now, whether that's good or not, I'm not necessarily sure, but it does do a lot for you in the builder. So I'm pretty 50-50 on whether I want Gholdengo banned. But as for saying it's on the level of Magearna, I think that's insane. I mean, Magearna
Yeah, yeah.
with stored power, like the answer to stored power is dark types, and then you've got a fairy and steel type
You're
with draining kiss.
yeah, yeah, exactly. It's just
Like
that's
no,
just a Pokemon where it was like, what are y'all doing with this Pokemon?
no, Magearna is on a totally different level than Gholdengo, and you can't. They're not even in the same league of brokenness. I would say.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you on that.
All right, I got one here from a new. Okay, I have no idea how to say this name. Anuj Sin, I think. Anyway, he says if we opted to go the Tera preview route when the first major suspect started, the meta would have less bans, be less guess heavy, be better for constructive game plans, and would have been a lot more fun and competitive. So, one thing I'll say right off the bat, this is not exactly a hot take. It's a bit cold,
Yeah, yeah.
but I still wanted to discuss it because Terra Preview, it's something I've regretted many a time looking back. When I first heard about it, I hated it because I'm like, no, like this isn't how the game is played. You don't reveal parts of the team. Like that's just not that's not what Pokemon is. Figuring out what the team is part of the game, and I don't want to be putting out there what is on the team. Like that feels like it's going to kind of minimize the value of a lot of potentially creative stuff. But the more I've thought about it, I'm like, well, the amount of notice it would give you when you know what something's type could turn into would just make it so much more skillful as a game. The better player would be rewarded for planning versus what we have today where it's like you end up in, and it's still a very skillful game, and arguably the complexity of it makes and the dealing with that uncertainty, you could argue that it's the most skillful game. Not definitely not the game where the best player wins the most, but it's definitely a very involved and game that takes a lot of deep thinking. But if we could just know what that is, you wouldn't end up in these situations where you're like, all right, I've positioned my end game so that I beat this Kingambit unless it's Terrify and it's Terrifier. Okay, good game. You wouldn't have that anymore, and that seems pretty great. So I think if I could go back and do it again, I'd have supported the Tera preview.
For sure. I think if I go back to what my vote was when we did have the initial Terra Stellae suspect, like right when the game came out, I think I put no change, and then Terra type preview was actually where you saw I was against it like you. Like I think it was like my least wanted. Like I wanted it less than I wanted Terra. Like I would have rather had Terra Stellae's banned than preview because I was basically the same as you. Like I don't believe in giving the information to the opponent. I also likened it to Z moves because Gen 7 is where I played the majority of my tournament games, and I think back to having to know whether Landorus is Fly or Z, Rock, Garchomp being Dragonium or Rockium Z, Kartana, which had 4 different viable coverage moves that were Z moves. And so I think back to that, and I kind of likened it to that, where I was like, well, we've already kind of had to play in different metas where we kind of had to make a judgment call on based on their team. I will say that Terastalize is a bit different. You look at something like Dragonite, Zamazenta, and King Gambit, and the late Roaring Moon, which all have 5 viable Terra types, and that's not even a exaggeration. The number is literally 5, and that can be kind of overwhelming. However, I would disagree with the part of the comment that said we would have less bans and the metagame would be more fun. I don't think we would have less bans. I think we would have the same amount of bans because some of these Pokemon are truly like something like Valiant without any Terra. That's going to be broken with SD in my opinion. It will tech the correct coverage and you won't be able to panic your way out. All that Gholdengo stuff, you're just going to die to knockoff. So I don't think that we would have less bans. I do agree with planning is easier, which of course you're going to be given more information. So planning absolutely will be easier. So I'm not going to say that for that, it's not like, oh, the skill level would go up. I agree. Game planning is important, and that would win as a result of this type of ban. But all things considered, I don't think it would be that much of a heavy difference on what got banned. Like, a lot of Pokemon get banned just because they are broken. Excalibur, with or without Terra, was never going to be a fair Pokemon for the game.
Yeah.
Same thing, I think, with like Fluttermane, Palafin, all of these things. These are, by definition, absurdly broken Pokemon. I don't know. I'm pretty pro Tera in general, though. I always have been. There is one thing I want to say though. As pro Tera as I am, I did say this many times, and I posted it on Smogon last year that they need to do another suspect test for terastallization, because if so much of the community to this day has an issue with it, it should not have only been suspect tested one time, aka after 1 month when people did not even understand how to correctly Tera. So if there is
that's
still
fair.
such, and it has been brought up many times, and the OU Council, the answer is always, oh, well, we're too late into the gen and we don't have enough support. Well, I'm telling you right now that I am pro Tera, and I'm telling you that that's absolutely the wrong approach. There is support for that, and it was something that was worth exploring just because it needs to be fair in terms of tiering. Like, there are both sides to it. I don't think it was fair that there was a tiering decision made 1 month. Again, 1 month is way too soon. Back then, nobody understood Tera that well, myself included. It's truly a mechanic that took this long to kind of figure out fully and that kind of thing. So yeah, my main opinion is that we needed another revisit on this. And the people who think it's broken, I'm not like, I don't think like they're like dumb or like anything like that, because I have a different opinion. I do think it was very valid that it should be looked into at a later time, because now we have all this future knowledge. It's not Gigantamax Dmax where, you know, it was very obviously something that upset the game balance.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'd like to see another round of tiering action on Tera, just to kind of see where people are at. Now, I will say I don't necessarily fault the council for their initial testing. Like, it was a month in, but a month is
I agree with that.
late.
No, the initial test is I 100% agree with the initial test. I think that was absolutely needed. It was just that I feel like we needed to revisit it because there was such a complaint from different people in the community of tournament players, because there's a very vocal amount of Gen 9 OU tournament players that still hate Tera and say it was a mistake. And I mean, they're doing fine in tournament results wise, winning, blah, blah, blah. But there's still a lot of them that do not enjoy it. And it's not like it's a metagame thing, because, I mean, they're playing and winning, right?
Yeah. No, I agree. I'm not the biggest fan of Tera. I think I do like what it's done for some Pokemon and like allowed options that weren't there before, like Thunderous Therian with Tera Blast flying is great. I love that. And, you know, like seeing Oricorio pop off in low tiers is kind of fun. So, you know, like there are some cool, and like, like Choice Banded Dragapult Tera Blast Ghost. I love that it can finally do that. And
finally
that
got a
higher
move, right?
stat.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I like some of the things Tera does, but I feel like Team Preview to me seems like the perfect balance, because it allows people that still want to use Tera get to use it, but you take so much of the guesswork out of there. And I'd agree with you that we'd probably have at least most of the same bands. Maybe some bands would have been saved. Like, I could see potentially Roaring Moon not getting banned if you knew what it was going to pull. I think that would make it like Volcarona or like Regieleki. There's one. It's like, oh, which ground super effective.
That's one of those
move will it use to
Pokemon that
kill
was
me?
like, yeah, truly broken. And that's a discussion as well. Tera Blast. A lot of people have their own opinions on that move in specifics, whether it's balanced or not. So
yeah, I mean, we could get into it. I think Tera Blast is like not. I mean, sure, if you ban Tera Blast, are you going to fix some problems? Sure. Volcarona will be less broken, although I still think ban worthy. You know, Dragonite will become less broken. Roaring Moon would probably deserve to come back. Espathra maybe could come back. But although it just doesn't really add anything, does it? But then if you ban Tera Blast, then you lose a lot of the cool stuff, like that Thunderous Therian, like that CB Dragapult. So it's kind of like just a really weird way that makes some Pokemon less broken, like Kyurem, because it uses Tera Blast, and then others
I'm exactly
it doesn't help
the same
at all.
opinion with you. Like it's some Pokemon that it kind of like but it just seems like dodging the problem to me, and overall wouldn't fix. So I'm on the same.
Yeah, just a weird
view
half
as you.
measure.
Exactly, it's just a half measure.
But there's one thing I remember you said earlier. So you made a point about like Iron Valiant still being broken. You're not a fan of Ival? You think it's too much?
Oh, I love it. It's one of my most spam Pokemon.
Well, I know there's the classic sack the featured mon and go into Ival. I mean, that's
of course. But I just mean from like a if you level out the game and you remove Tera, I think that some Pokemon will just end up revealing themselves to be broken. Like one of the
Oh
most
yeah. Okay, so we're talking
like one of
Terra
the
free
Pokemon.
meta. I thought you were talking about
Oh yeah.
like a Terra preview meta. I'm like, what? Like Iron Valiant seems like it'd
Oh,
be fine there. But okay,
sorry.
I get you
Apologies.
now.
Apologies. Terra free meta. Yeah. So what was I gonna say? Oh, one of the Pokemon that people complain about the most right now is Ogerpon. Well, I mean, the Terra is gonna be, and that's again that Pokemon's broken for its own reasons.
Yeah.
I too hate playing against that thing, but that's just one of the things where you already know exactly the majority of that Pokemon is already shown to you at preview. You already know what it's going to do. The biggest issue is knowing if it's going to be U-turn, play rough, or knockoff. But all the Terra stuff, all that you already know, and that Pokemon is still too broken. So I think some Pokemon, they're just by design, they're just OP, or they have those types of qualities. And Terra, for very few Pokemon, takes them to like a completely different level that you can blame that for the ban.
Yeah. No, that's fair. That's fair. It probably wouldn't block many bans, maybe a couple. Most of them would still happen anyway, but there's definitely a case for Terra preview for other reasons. But yeah, no, I can agree. The less bans, probably not so much, but be less guest heavy, more fun and competitive, probably. Yeah. All right, so I think we're on to the last hot take on your end, right?
Okay.
All right, what do we have?
This one's kind of funny, but I like this. So this is from Joltments. Shout outs to them. They always send me some really strong teams. Highlighter OU, which is one of the only reasons I'm even reading this comment. I know that Joltments is pretty strong on the ladder. They said Reshiram and Zekrom should be tested in SVOU. I got a Tinglu, Faster Dragons, and a Gliscor waiting for them. Reshiram especially. My Primarina takes 12% from Blue Flare with a crit. Trust me. So this is pretty funny. I know VKC always talks about how Reshiram should be back in black and white OU because there's Tyranitar and all this other stuff and it'll be handleable. But I thought it was pretty funny that they said that Gliscor and Faster Dragons are waiting because I do remember that Reshiram and Zekrom do have a pretty pitiful base speed of 90. But I don't know. This is just I brought this up because it's kind of funny and because we always do discuss like, oh, what if this Uber came back or what if this Pokemon is not actually as strong as we once thought. Personally, though, obviously I'm not really a fan of either of these Pokemon returning. Zekrom is broken because it has the move Dragon Dance, but even if you look at the speed stats and you say, oh, well, we have such crazy offensive Pokemon now, I think the bulk is a big deal on all cover legendaries. I used to meme a lot, like back in the day, that Lugia would not be broken in the current meta because the power creep and the defense creep is so ridiculous. But all of these Pokemon, like cover legendaries, and this also goes for Zamazenta too, who is in OU, but they are so bulky that it's like a different game playing with those Pokemon. So I'm like very against the idea of almost every box legendary coming back.
Yeah,
I think they're way too constricting.
Oh, for sure. I mean, this take is, good teams, although they may build. I don't know if they're memeing or whatever, but this take is terrible. Like Zekrom in particular, I want to clown on that one first because that's just like beyond ridiculous. So Terravolt, right? Moves and their effects ignore the abilities of other Pokemon. That means you can't unaware this thing.
Yep.
You cannot deal with this with your Terra Ground Dondozo. It will do too much. So you've got Bolt Strike, a 130 base power electric move. And then you've got things like Outrage, and you've got Scale Shot too. It can do the loaded dice Scale Shot thing. And then it could also run like Terra Blast Ice. So you have basically the fattest Dragon Dance Pokemon ever. And its abilities and their moves are ignoring.
It would just Terrafly Dragon Dance every game and probably beat every
It'd be
possible.
way too much.
Like you said, Terravolt's impossible to deal with from any type of... It doesn't matter what the speed is. The bulk is going to give you 2 Dragon Dances, and then Reshiram, while it would be more of like an all-out attacking Pokemon, again, it's just... What would this add?
Yeah. Oh, the other thing is, if you don't think Dragon Electric coverage is that good, I'd like to refer you to my friend Raging Bolt. Think about how effective it is to just click Dragon Electric moves. That's really, really good coverage.
It's really all it comes down to.
Yeah. Now I will say they don't have Roost.
From Ubers itself.
Neither of these Pokemon have recovery, which is relevant, particularly for Reshiram.
They did lose the relevant. Yeah.
They don't have Roost, no Recover, no Morning Sun. Reshiram, like if you killed its special attack stat, it'd be like a Gouging Fire without Morning Sun. So sure, that'd be fine, I guess. I mean, Turbo Blaze a little intense, but it couldn't run booster energy, so probably be like a slightly worse Gouging Fire. But man, this 150 special attack, blue flare, it can basically just click over and over, overheat. And it can burn your Garganackle because of Turbo Blaze, and it can get past Flash Fire Pokemon like Ceruledge. So, no, basically. Choice Specs. Yeah. Choice Specs would be way too much. It would click Choice Specs, blue flare, and it would kill everything. Who wants that? I mean, I think with Tera, Dragon, Draco, it can actually one-shot specially defensive Glow King. So you're like, oh, I'm just going to pull up with my Tera Water Glow King. No, you're not. You're not. It'll die. Everything's going to die. So it's,
You'll die.
It's too much.
This Pokemon is a lot stronger than people give it credit for. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's like so many Ubers. Like I've thought back. Like I know Joey likes to say Solgaleo is not too broke, but like all these Pokemon are like the natural bulk and their different roles that they can do. Trust me, if they were good, they would have came back. As if they were good for the metagame.
Hear me out on the Solgaleo one though, because this is okay. Hear me out. So this Pokemon has almost no setup on the physical side. Nothing. It doesn't even get Howl. On the special side, it has 113 special attack, which is not bad, and it has Calm Mind, but it does not get stored power, so it wouldn't be able to do that stuff. So on the special setup side, this Pokemon is basically just like a better Jirachi, which is terrible. So I don't think a better Jirachi would still be that crazy. And yeah, other than that, like it's not going to be great as a banded Pokemon. Steel is not a great offensive type, and Psychic is kind of a terrible type in general. And, you know, like 97 base speed. I think if Solgaleo dropped tomorrow, this Pokemon would, not only would it be fine, I don't think it would even be that meta. Oh, and it doesn't get Stealth Rock. I gotta disagree. It doesn't get Stealth Rock. Where are the utility moves? Like, who's using this and why?
The utility move is Teleport and Trick Room. I think that it would just be probably stuck on all of those teams.
So you think it would just be like a Trick Room setter? Like that's like not. I mean, Trick Room setter
in terms of what you said with support, I think that's like the only, because like you said, it doesn't get rocks, right? Yeah. So that's like the one thing that probably everybody would have wanted to end up doing with this. Because I agree with you that the move pool on this Pokemon is not good. I remember looking at it before and thinking, wow, you have to run like Crunch for cover, you know, like for coverage. Like it doesn't have like amazing moves. If it had like Swords Dance, you could do some type of like Necrozma, Duskmane, Trick Room. But I don't know. I don't like the defensive capabilities. HP is too high in my opinion. I don't know. I guess it's a Pokemon that I'd have to think about because I kind of do agree with you. Like the ability isn't that great either. What is it? Clear full metal body.
It's basically
right?
clear
so
body. So
like that doesn't matter, right? It would have been better if it got filter or something like that. But I don't know. I guess I'd have to give a better. Usually, box legends I'm really averse to because it's just the auto bulk that I don't like having to deal with. So
yeah, I mean that's fair. Like it is the fact that it has 137 HP, 107 base defense, but then we've got like things like Ting-Lu that are way fatter and not that bad. So I don't know. I don't think it'd be that much of an issue. Now, I will say, the massive HP stat. What I think it would do, because a Pokemon like Solgaleo, just with how limited it is setup wise, is going to be super easy to deal with for fat teams. Not that easy to deal with for more offensive builds. Like if you're running HO, you know, your Iron Valiant comes in and you're like, okay, I've set up at +2. I can Tera fighting in close combat and somehow I do 70. That's going to be a problem. Not a problem at all for fat teams. They're just going to switch into their Mola, their Corviknight, their physically defensive Gliscor, and they'll have no issue at all. Yeah. So, and that, I think that's kind of sort of the direction I would see the metagame going in. I don't think that would be bad. So I don't know. And I will say my priority, I think we're still in the stage where unless we see some Tera restrictions, that would be probably priority number 1. But priority number 2, I'd like to see some bans happen. Wellspring is at the top of my list. Curem, I know we can't suspect it 3 times, but maybe we can. And then Dragonite. So I want to see those 3 gone. Then after that, we can talk about dropping Solgaleo, but I really don't think it would be a problem at all.
Sure. I like that take. Seems like there's a lot of Solgaleo fans. I'll have to do my research and come back.
Honestly, I'm not a fan at all. I would never use this. This Pokemon looks super boring. But like, it's not so much that I like it.
The fact that it can't set up is kind of crazy, though. I thought it would at least get Swords Dance or something.
No, it's got. I mean, it's Calm Mind. The only thing it could possibly do is Calm Mind, but then it's just like slightly better Jirachi.
That's what I'm saying. Nobody even
Yeah.
calm minds these days anymore. Power is such a needed thing that like you
Yeah.
can't even call. Like, you got to be Iron Valiant or Raging Bolt
No.
if you want to call mind nowadays.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and like Combine Solgaleo just seems like an invitation to get rolled by Tinglu. So
Oh yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
Literally.
but yeah,
Yeah. The
no,
special attack's not good. What did you say it was? Like 95,
it's
97?
it's better. It's 113, so it's like decent,
Oh,
but
the
it's
special attack. The
not.
speed was 97. Right.
Speed's
Right.
97, yeah. But
But
yeah,
like we know, it's not enough. It's never enough unless you have like a high powered move to spam or something like that.
yeah. I
It's
mean,
not
it
gonna be enough.
doesn't. No photon geyser, no funny business. It's
Right?
Sunsteel Strike is physical.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you doing?
You're gonna be running flash cannon. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
You're finished if you're running that.
yeah. If you ever are running Flash Cannon, I want this to be a public and service announcement to all those Magnezone users out there that still haven't figured it out. You shouldn't use a Pokemon that needs to run Flash Cannon. That's like,
Yeah, there's like 5 Pokemon out there that use flash cannon, and it makes sense. There's like Hydreigon. There's Magnezone. That's about it. Like it's
Yeah.
really hard for me to even think off the top of my head what really to use in flash cannon. But yeah.
all right. Well, thank you very much for joining. Had a good time. I'm honestly surprised
too.
on
That was
how much
awesome.
we agreed on. I thought that I put in some here like, okay, because people said I was too nice to Jim. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna put some slobber knockers in here. And they're like, oh, never mind. All the hot takes. It seems like all the weird, even the more unusual takes we seem to be aligned on. But I don't know, maybe
I don't know,
if I can
I feel like I used to have like more wild takes. Like I used to be super like opinionated on Pokemon like back when I competed more, I guess. Nowadays I have my like opinions and whatnot, but there's nothing like super like back in the day, for example. I'll give you an example. Like in Generation 6, I was so angry when Sableye got banned, even though it was very clearly broken and one of the worst Pokemon to play with. But I remember I was very adamantly against the ban, and I was like, this is gonna put us down a slippery slope of banning Pokemon because they're not fun to play against. Like I remember I wanted to die on that hill that Sableye isn't broken, it's just not fun, and we shouldn't ban based on that. But my mind has completely even changed since then. Like we were talking about it earlier. I think like I do value the game actually being fun. Competition does matter, but you got to make something that's still an enjoyable medium at the end of the day. So I've come to like accept a lot of things like and find like the enjoyment in them. And overall, it's so hard to balance this game, especially Gen 9. Like I was on the console in Gen 6 and Gen 7. It wasn't that hard to balance. Like there were a few clear broken things. I can't imagine a gen with 20 bans, you know?
yeah, no, this
It's
is
nearly impossible to come to decisions that everybody is happy with, and that's just how it is.
yeah, no, for sure. Gen 9 is a challenge unlike any other. But yeah, hopefully this was able to give some of the viewers maybe balance their takes out a bit, give them some new things to think about. But all right. So yeah, as guys, of course, you can click the title to go see Blender's channel. Definitely check him out. Lots of great content there. Lots of featured Pokemon. If you want to see really wacky Pokemon used in really high ladder by a really good player. Now, they don't always do well because they're crappy Pokemon, but it's a lot of fun to watch. So definitely check it out, and I'll see you guys next time.
All right, take care. Thank you.